Do you have to upgrade your GPU, or will one from 2015 serve its purpose going into 2023? Probably not, but let's find out. I decided to dust off my old GTX 960, which was released in 2015, and I wanted to see just exactly what this graphics card was capable of in 2022. So I wanted to start by testing out some older games. First game I booted up here is CSGO. Now this game came out in 2012, so by all means this graphics card should be able to run this game, and it does pretty well. So needless to say, not too surprised here, not blown away by its performance or anything, but it does hold up with some older games. It also held up pretty well here in this indie game called Jump the Gun. Highly recommend checking it out. This game is harder than Dark Souls, but it's 2D, a lot simpler, and I was running over 144 frames easily on this game. And again, not too much of a surprise here. This game isn't very graphically demanding. It's two-dimensional. It's 8-bit. The art style is amazing, and it does look nice. It also plays really well, but clearly this is not too much stress for this GPU. So far we've got old games, 2D indie games. Cool. If that's what you're playing, this card's great. Now, let's check out how it runs in maybe Path of Exile. Again, this is also an older game. However, they're continuing to update it and overhauling the graphics, the performance, and everything. And with this, I also was a little bit surprised. Not only was it running it very well on decent graphics settings, but I was getting above 60 frames per second, which is pretty awesome on this game. Now, if you're playing competitively, I definitely wouldn't recommend something like this, because in a game like Path of Exile, you can die in literally a millisecond, so every frame kind of counts here. But if you're playing more casually, like maybe my dad. My dad really loves Path, and he plays, up until Act 10, he likes to beat Katava, and he likes to make builds to see if he can do that. But he doesn't really get into maps too much, so if you're more of a casual gamer, this is perfect. But, maybe you're more competitive, and for some reason, the only graphics card you could get your hands on was this GTX 960. Not really sure how, because I scoured the internet to see if I could find one for sale, and it took a lot longer than I anticipated to actually find one for sale. Found one on Amazon for 150 bucks used. Now, don't recommend buying it. Definitely would not say go out and buy this GPU, even if it did perform very well. I would just buy one that's better for the same price and new. But anyways, this is just for fun, just seeing what we got going on here. And the next game that I decided to boot up was Rocket League. Now, this was really, really amazing in my opinion, because not only was it running it, I was locking in around 144 FPS, which is super awesome. And seeing as this game is on Unreal Engine, just like Fortnite and many other popular games, I would venture to guess it could probably run those pretty well too. Now again, we're looking at the same deal that, Path of Exile and CSGO are in that these are older games that launched earlier, but they are still wildly popular to this day. So if you're maybe just passing down a computer to a kid who wants to play some Fortnite, then they shouldn't run into any issues, honestly. So this card's actually holding up pretty well to play games that are older, even a couple newer titles that are a little bit less demanding. So what's the downside? Why would you upgrade from this card? Well, I ran into that issue when I decided to see how well it could run Halo Infinite. And herein lies the problem with this card. It does not support DirectX 12. So any game that runs on DirectX 12 not only isn't going to look too great, but it also causes some really, really bad buffering and some errors here that I just would not recommend playing this game on this. It was not a pleasant experience. I hated every second of this, and not just because I'm not a huge fan of Halo Infinite. It was just not good. Now, something else to bear in mind is that generally I am playing on a 3080 Ti, so I don't have any issues with frames or anything. Not saying this to brag, but saying it to kind of bring some perspective to the fact that you always will notice if you upgrade or downgrade. But as we stated previously, this would be a great card if it's, just kind of hanging out gathering some dust to throw in a PC and give to a younger kid that maybe just wants to play a couple older games or some Fortnite, Rocket League, whatever. They don't really have much to compare it to, so they won't notice the difference as much as someone like me who's used to playing on newer, higher-end hardware. Very last game I decided to test was some PUBG, and again, older game, been around for a while, but still has a really, really big player base. Lots of people still play it to this day. And card ran it really well. Again, not at the most competitive frame rates or anything, but I know plenty of people that only play one or two games. There's so many games out there, but some people they just find one, like one of my old friends, all he plays is Counter-Strike. So this card actually might be perfect for him. He could just hang out and play his Counter-Strike and have a great time. Or maybe you only like to play older games. I know sometimes my brother and I get the itch to play some Dungeon Siege, and I mean, you could probably run that fine on integrate. Actually, I know for a fact you can run that fine on integrated graphics, so you wouldn't even need a 960. And I do want to show here, I'm standing in the red zone, and some explosions kind of start happening all over the map because there's a bunch of mortar shells coming in, and I wanted to make sure I included this to show that there aren't even really many frame drops while all of these explosions are going on, so nothing in this game really happens to push this card over the limit and drop your frames too much, which is really nice. So no matter what's going on in PUBG, you can pretty comfortably play this game on this 960. Actually, sorry, the last game I did try to test was was Doom Eternal, and I must say this one was brutal. I could not see myself playing Doom on this GPU. Most of the other games I could manage to play fairly comfortably, minus Halo and Doom. Probably same issue, it's a DirectX 12 game, but I was barely locking in 30 FPS in Doom, and it was causing a lot of stuttering and just too many issues for such a fast-paced and precise game. And now I think with these games and this test that I've done, it really goes to show what this card is capable of. It depends on what you're doing. If you're trying to get into all these newer games, or if you're trying to play competitively, I would highly recommend you upgrade your GPU to something a little newer, a little more current. Especially if you want to play new games, you need something that's going to be able to run DirectX 12. But if you're just kind of going to hang out and casually play a couple of older games, even some newer games that aren't super graphically intense, then you're gonna be fine, but definitely don't expect to be able to play the new God of War on max graphics on a 4K monitor. Not that anyone probably did on this card, but at least now there's something out there to show you what this card can do, and maybe will help you decide if you think you need to upgrade your graphics card or not. That's about it. Have a good one.